Welcome to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. Mercy and I are just loving doing the show, but we're not loving what's going on in the news and in our nation's capital. It's pretty depressing stuff out there. And to talk about it today, we have another great conservative from the United States House of Representatives, a conservative from Louisiana who was chairman of the Republican Study Committee and now is vice chairman of the Republican Conference, which is a very, very important job, especially when we're in the minority. Mike Johnson from Louisiana. Thanks for joining us, Congressman.
Hey, y'all. Hello from Louisiana. Great to be with you.
You said you're in Shreveport today?
I am. I'm back in the district, the northwest corner of the state. Best people in the world. They're feeling kind of depressed about what's going on in Washington as well. But I'm trying to be an ambassador of good news, guys, because I am very bullish on the future of the country in spite of what we're facing right now.
Well, thank God. We need hope. You know, I said I have two mottos in 2021. One is the world has gone mad. So every time Matt Schlapp tells me, can you believe this happened? And I just respond, the world has gone mad. But then my second motto is we have to have great hope in the future, because that's what the Lord promises, is this hope in the future. So I agree with you, Congressman. I think we got to stay strong and be the happy conservative warriors and really fight back. And so let me ask you this first question. We just saw Attorney General Merrick Garland basically give the green light to the FBI to go ahead and investigate parents who are protesting at these school board meetings. This is a request coming from the National School Board Association,
which is a union. So another union leader tells them what to do.
Basically saying that these parents are potential domestic terrorists. What are your thoughts on this? How dangerous is this precedent that Attorney General Merrick Garland is pursuing?
It's infuriating. I was on the phone late last night with Jim Jordan, and he and I are leaders on the House Judiciary Committee. As you know, I'm the ranking member of the Constitution Subcommittee, and this is a direct threat to our most fundamental freedoms under the Constitution. We're all over this. I think there's a lot of questions to ask of the DOJ and Merrick Garland himself about why they're trying to interject themselves into these local issues. There's no federal crimes here. There's hardly a crime at all, maybe a few handful of examples. But before I got to Congress, for 20 years, I was a religious liberty defense lawyer in federal courts around the country. We defended religious freedom, the sanctity of human life, and our fundamental values, the Second Amendment. And we were always concerned about the chilling effect on free speech. And I've been going around for the last 2 decades, as y'all been your whole careers, trying to encourage patriots, concerned citizens, to get involved in local government, to monitor what's happening at the school boards, to audit their local curricula, to know what kids are being exposed to. And now you have the Federal Department of Justice effectively suggesting that parents who are engaged in that way are to be likened to domestic terrorists. It is unfathomable that we would have gotten to this point, but here we are. They're weaponizing the DOJ as if the people had not already lost enough faith in that institution. It's a desperate time.
Yeah, it's a desperate time, and I think the saddest thing is we were all told that General Garland was a moderate when he was up for the Supreme Court, that Obama had gone to the center to pick someone, and it's true the AG in the end should be independent or mostly independent, but he's doing exactly what the hard left wants to do. Does it infuriate you that you have had rough treatment in public? You've had these George Soros-funded activists get in your face and try to disrupt your events. Your colleagues have. Kristen Sinema had to share a bathroom stall with one of these creeps the other day. He was actually in the country illegally. Why are the violent protesters always only conservatives, and whenever the liberals go too far, they are justifiable protesters?
You notice that double standard? Yeah, we pointed out in our vigorous debates in House Judiciary all the time that the real problem, Matt, is that regular, everyday Americans, hardworking American people can see this for themselves. And the reason they're losing faith in our institutions increasingly is because they think that there's this double standard. They see it in play all the time. They think that there's, one standard for some people in the country and another that's applied to conservatives or people who believe in the foundational principles of the country. And so they don't see that that's fair. It violates their basic sense of fairness and justice. And when the people lose faith in our system of justice, when they lose faith in this idea that we do have equal justice under law as is inscribed above the door of the Supreme Court, we lose something very important, something that is necessary to maintain a constitutional republic like we have. I lose sleep over this, guys, because, we're only 245 years into this experiment, this grand experiment in self-governance. And the founders were very clear in their warnings to us. If you're going to maintain a republic, you have to hold a couple of these essential pieces in place, the foundational pieces. And one of them is the people's faith that we're going to exercise justice equally. And we're losing some of that. Merrick Garland is one of the primary reasons why we're doing it. And thank the Lord that we all opposed him to not go to the U.S. Supreme Court.
You had a great tweet basically saying, sending the FBI after parents who speak up at school board meetings, ordering the IRS to snoop into every American's banking transactions above $600, threatening private companies for workers making their own health care decisions. This is what actual authoritarianism looks like.
Yeah, this isn't theoretical anymore. They're doing this out in the open. Many of the Democrats in Congress believed some of this stuff a few years ago, but they never would have said it openly in public. And now it's as if they can wave the banner. They are truly big government socialists now. They are heading us towards a totalitarian kind of state. They believe that is a necessary step, I guess, to usher in utopia that they're after. And it doesn't work. They're trying to turn us into Venezuela or Cuba. We have to defend our core principles, and this never been more important than to do it right now. I'm so grateful for everything CPAC does in that regard.
So, Matt, do you mind if I jump in real quick? Because this is really bothering me. On the vaccine mandates, especially as you're seeing these employees who are being forced to get the vaccines, or they're going to be fired, or they're put on unpaid leave. I mean, what can the Republicans do? What are you all thinking to do in Congress to stop these forced vaccine mandates? As we know, Biden put forward a rule basically saying that businesses with employees over 100 people would need to either have a vaccine or they would have to get weekly tested. I mean, this is like an outrage in terms of what the federal government's trying to do to force these vaccine mandates in addition to the state mandates, but in addition to the states. But my question is, we know, I mean, it sounds like the legal precedent is just not on the side of those individuals who don't want to get vaccinated.
Well, we'll see. The jury is still out, so to speak, on that. There's a number of legal challenges that are pending and already filed now around the country. I think many of them will be put on the rocket docket. Ultimately, we'll get, hopefully, the Supreme Court to weigh in on this, because I expect we'll have a split amongst the federal appellate circuits on it. That's a necessary step. But here's the thing. Look, we have a responsibility to protect public health, but securing our fundamental freedoms at the same time, these are not mutually exclusive pursuits. We must do both. And I think that many of these big government totalitarian folks, they're using this as an excuse. They're exploiting this opportunity, as we've seen in so many areas, to steamroll over the opposition, to take away people's fundamental freedoms. It's important to remember, as some of these cases now, the plaintiffs are arguing, we've always respected religious freedom, for example. I mean, some people have a sincerely held religious belief that prevents their taking the vaccine. And that should be respected. It always has been, and those are some of the complaints and the arguments that are being made in these cases. I think, hope, and believe the Supreme Court ultimately will sustain that, and that we'll have reasonable accommodations that are made, as have always been made, for people who have reasonable objections.
Of all of our rights, our religious rights seem to really trump these types of mandates. The Supreme Court is loath to come in and say, you don't actually have the right to have religious views in this particular area. And when it comes to vaccines generally, I think one of the things people lose sight of is that vaccines for diseases that will just literally ravage populations with mortality rates that are very high, that's one set of standards. It's another thing to have a standard on a vaccine when the survival rates are so incredibly positive. We should be pleased that almost everybody comes out of this with the antibodies. So it's kind of like apples and oranges when they say, hey, do you want to have smallpox or measles become an epidemic? And it's like, no, of course not. And it's a reasonable decision. So we're really balancing with all these things. And as you think about individual rights, I want to go back to this idea that Congress wants to track all of our personal financial transactions. $600, just so everybody gets this. If the government can kind of snoop on every, or get the financial institution to let us know every time we spend, half of $100, isn't that a tantamount to having to go to the government to, in the end, get permission to spend $600? What's the intent here?
Well, I mean, they claim the intent is they want to go after tax evaders and scofflaws, right? And make sure that everyone is paying their fair share. That's their famous phrase now that they use. It's absolutely outrageous. It is an outrageous violation of privacy. And it is a frightening thing to suggest that the all-powerful, omniscient, omnipresent federal government should be able to snoop into private banking transactions. They're saying a cumulative use of more than $600 in a year. That's literally every American, everyone alive almost. And so they will have unprecedented access to everything in your private banking transaction. Wait till the American people figure out what this group is all about. What they're doing right now, y'all, is they're trying to push through an LBJ-sized agenda, right? Like they pretend that they have this giant mandate to transform the country, as Schumer and company keep saying, Pelosi keeps saying. But we have to remember what's so outrageous about this. The multi-trillions of dollars of spending plan, all these things we're debating right now, they're doing this with a tiny, tiny majority in the House and a split in the Senate.
It's unpopular.
I mean, LBJ, right? And wait till people hear what's actually in this legislation, what it is going to do to their personal finances, ultimately to the security of their family. When we put China in the driver's seat by raising, employers and small businesses tax rates higher than communist China, all the other mandates they're going to put on us, the way that we're going to be squeezed with this rise in inflation, it'll skyrocket when all this is done. People don't know what's actually in this legislation. When they figure it out, it's going to be a tsunami of discontent.
And the other thing is, as people avoid banks, you'll have a greater black market too. So they're even going to get more of the thing they're trying to prevent.
Right,
it's crazy.
Right. Well, Congressman Mike Johnson, thank you so much for joining us. You're such a strong conservative leader. We appreciate you being in the fight in Congress to stop the progressives. Because let me tell you, I kind of feel like the progressives are in charge. I mean, is that your feeling?
Well, they are right now, but this is going to change in 22. I believe we're going to have a massive red wave election. Newt Gingrich talked to a handful of us just a few days ago, and he said, I believe that you guys have the greatest opportunity of my lifetime, including the Reagan years, including what they did in the 90s with the contract with America and all the rest, because the only good thing, the bright news about what the radical left is doing right now, it is waking people up. So us conservatives, CPAC, we have the greatest opportunity of our lifetimes. You guys remember that. This is a good time to be alive. You have the answers.
It is. Well, we're ready for the challenge. Thank you again, Congressman Mike Johnson, for joining us. And we'll be right back with Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Joining us now, a friend of CPAC, someone who we are so excited to support, such a strong leader, not only in the state of Texas, but also nationally. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Ken, thanks for joining us.
Hey, always happy to be with you all.
Well, let's start with the breaking news. We just saw yesterday a district court judge issued a temporary restraining order blocking Texas, the heartbeat abortion law on Wednesday, basically finding in favor of the U.S. Department of Justice, which, of course, have tried to block this law. What does that mean going forward?
So it means we're going to have an appeal to the Fifth Circuit. My job is to defend state law, including this one, and so we're going to do that to the best of our ability. I feel pretty confident we're going to do quite well. So we'll be taking that up to the Fifth Circuit as fast as we can. Obviously, we just found out last night that we had this stay, and now we'll get to find out what the Fifth Circuit says.
So for our non-lawyer parts of the audience like me, the Fifth Circuit, we all read about how Donald Trump transformed the federal judiciary. Is the Fifth Circuit seen as a court that's favorable to this concept of federalism and allowing states to regulate in these areas?
I would say so. We haven't had a lot of cases since we've had a lot of new justices come in, but I feel pretty confident that they're leaning. We still have, obviously, judges that have differences of opinion. But definitely the court is stronger as it relates to states' rights and federalism than it was prior to Donald Trump, much stronger. So I feel pretty good about this case, and I think we're going to do well.
Shifting gears to the border, we know that we're looking at these poll numbers for President Biden in terms of immigration issues. He's getting 25% approval on when it comes to immigration issues and the border, 67% disapproval. Attorney General, what are you seeing at the border, and why this inaction coming from the federal government and our missing in action border czar, Kamala Harris?
Yeah, and I don't know if I'd call it inaction. I would call it action in the wrong direction. They pretty much decided that they want this to happen. This was planned. They followed the Obama pattern. This happened under President Obama. Trump stopped it by starting to build the wall, by putting in place policies that actually work, like the Stay in Mexico program, and he sent criminals back that we're not sending back. And so I think Joe Biden decided he wanted to go back to more immigration, more illegal immigration. He's not following federal law. He's not even following court orders from the Supreme Court. So we're going to keep fighting him. We just filed another lawsuit against him to try to make him to get him to enforce the law that he isn't enforcing, which was the Stay in Mexico, which he's already been told to enforce. So it's quite ridiculous. But the reality is, I don't think he's trying to follow law. He's doing just the opposite.
So you live in Texas. Your family lives in Texas. We've all read about these communities along the border really being devastated by this, a whole state's worth of illegal immigration coming in to America, but really centered on Texas. Give us a little feel as you tour the border. What's happening in these communities, and why are they getting why are they actually turning to Republicans to solve the problem so quickly?
Well, first of all, I'd love to have you guys come with me. We're headed down there next week.
It's a deal.
Wait a minute,
that's a deal. Write it down, Mercy. We want to see this firsthand.
Yes.
No, there's nothing like it. That's why I wish the president would come down and see it. I wish the vice president would come down. I've been all along the border. I'm headed to Del Rio next week, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And the reason it's good to be there is you can actually talk to the people on the ground, the mayors, the sheriffs, the law enforcement people, the business owners. They all feel the same way. They're very frustrated that they're having to deal with all the crime, COVID being spread around, just a number of people overrunning their cities and the cost of that, and the fact that the federal government has turned their back on them and said, no, we're not going to help you. We're actually going to make it worse. We're going to invite these people in. We're going to tell them they're welcome to come. And so there's a lot of frustration along the border. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, it affects you in a negative way.
Well, I got to tell you, it's something we're going to keep a close eye on. I know there's another caravan headed their way. I mean, how does Texas prepare for this? I know that they're using, not only the federal border patrol agents, but also, individuals of the National Guard to be part of this. But there really is no way of stopping this, right?
Well, there is if the federal government would do their job, but the federal government is not sending people back. They're telling them to basically greet the Border Patrol, and then the Border Patrol brings them in and sends them around the country. So it's, we can try to arrest people for violating state law, but we have no authority to enforce federal law. And so at least that's what the Supreme Court told us in a case decided several years ago. So it's incredibly frustrating, and there's a lot of frustration building on the border. People don't feel safe. They're worried that they're going to be harmed. And, I fear that there's going to be some negative consequences, and then it's going to be blamed on the people trying to defend themselves as opposed to Joe Biden, who caused this.
The thing that I'm most alarmed at is we just went through all the ways in which American citizens are being really controlled by their government, watching their financial transactions, mandating they get a vaccine that the science is still learning a lot about, mandating that schools do this or do that, saying that parents can't be involved in the education of their kids. You see all of that, yet when it comes to someone who comes here illegally, they don't have to do any of that. They don't even have to be necessarily screened for Chinese corona, as you said. Do the Democrats not understand that the American people are smart and they're reading the fact that there's now two standards of justice? One, if you pay your taxes and follow the law, and a better standard of justice if you break the law and come here.
I think they believe if they keep telling us lies and they create misinformation and they get the media to repeat it over and over, that we'll all believe it. But how can you believe a government that tells you that you have to get a vaccine, you're going to lose your job and your livelihood, and maybe you can't travel. And yet we have a border full of people with COVID. They don't vaccinate them. They don't test them. They secretly send them all over the country. So those two things don't go together very well. If you really care about COVID, you're not going to let people in the country to spread COVID. So I don't believe any of what they say about COVID. They're not telling the truth about why they're doing the vaccine mandates, why they're doing the mask mandates. There are other reasons, because if there weren't other reasons, they would be stopping people crossing the border with COVID.
The crazy part, General, is minors, I'm not going to tell you how I know this, but as you know, we have 5 children. Minors actually get calls on their cell phones from government officials if they think any corona has happened around them, to kind of harass them into taking certain steps. We can do that with American citizens under 18 years old. Young single girls can get pestered on their cell phone, but we can't know where illegal people are who are in the interior of the country. We're tracking the American people and everything they do, including their health, but we're just letting people go into these communities who then do not come to their first hearing and slip into the shadows. This is dangerous.
Oh, it's absolutely dangerous, and they know it. I mean, we knew what the consequences were under the Obama administration. We already had this. He knew exactly what he would get if he did this, and he apparently wanted those results, which is more drugs, more fentanyl, which kills, more COVID, which kills, more crime, more violent crime, and the cartels gaining control not only along the border, but also infiltrating our country with gangs and violent crime. So Joe Biden is getting exactly what he wants. He just doesn't tell the American people the truth, that this is exactly the result he wants.
So you've been watching what Attorney General Merrick Garland has done, which he's asking the FBI to investigate these incidents where parents are going to the school boards. This came from a request from the National School Board Association, basically saying that parents could be qualified as domestic terrorists for standing up against the school board. Are you surprised by Merrick Garland's actions?
Yeah, I mean, to me, we're looking like more of a non-free country. These countries we used to fight in world wars, we're looking more like that. We have the government scaring parents about free speech. I don't know that they have any examples of people really being threatened. Look, angry parents, these parents deserve to be angry. The government is forcing vaccines, forcing masks, forcing the CRT. So I understand why parents are angry, and it is unbelievable that the Department of Justice and the FBI is targeting parents. This is not a free country anymore, and this is not law enforcement for law enforcement's sake. This is a law enforcement that has been very politicized. It's no longer about getting the bad guys. It's about getting the good guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. By the way, I keep reading about angry parents. If you want to see angry parents, please just come over to our house. Part of being a parent is sometimes you need to get angry at your kids. And part of being a parent
I'm not angry at the kids. I'm angry at some of these schools that are just destroying our children.
Part of being a parent is getting angry when someone's abusing your kids. And the ultimate time when a parent should get angry is when the teachers and administrators, whose salaries are paid for with our taxpayer dollars, are teaching our kids to hate the parents.
And hate America.
And
I thought about this yesterday. I was like, we lose our youth and we lose our country. And I really believe that that's where it will be at the end of the day. I just want to get your final thoughts on that.
Yeah, so here's the deal. I think that we're losing sight. This is our government. We own the government. We are the people that control the government. Now we've got a government that thinks they own us, that they can tell us what to do, that they can take, that somehow they grant individual rights. These rights that we have are not from them. They are, as the Declaration of Independence said, they are from God. They are not from the government. And Joe Biden and his administration think that we have to answer to them. They answer to us. And the fact that the DOJ and the FBI are going to put task force together to go after parents is beyond any believable thing that I've ever seen since I've been alive.
Yeah, well, Attorney General Ken Paxton, I just want to say we need you on that wall. We need you defending our rights, and good luck in the Fifth Circuit as you defend the rights of the unborn and the rights of Texans to determine what their laws are around the controversial issue of abortion, and your right to keep security in your state when it's being overrun from people at the southern border. So we're with you 100%. We appreciate you being on with us on America Uncanceled. And you're going to love our next guest, Gordon Chang. We'll be right back with Gordon Chang after this short break. Welcome back to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. We're now joined, we're just kind of taking people all over the globe.
I know, this has been fabulous.
We're now going to take people to a true expert on what's going on with the pernicious activities of our communist enemy in China, the CCP. Gordon Chang, who's a board member here at CPAC and someone we've had the great fortune of traveling the world with. And he's the right guy to ask, what is China up to now?
Well, Gordon, we've got the 72nd anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party in power. What did you see in terms of the activities? What was their message this past weekend?
Yeah, starting Friday, which was the 72nd anniversary, we saw a record number of Chinese incursions into Taiwan's air defense identification zone. There were 38. And if we thought that number was big, it went to 39 on Saturday. And Sunday, they took a break. It was only 16. But on Monday, they really took everybody by surprise because there were 56 incursions. Since then, they've dropped off, but we're nervously waiting October 12th, which is Taiwan's National Day, because we don't know what Beijing will do, but it's certain that they will make a statement of some kind.
Yeah, I'm certain. You know, the Chinese really seem to react to American weakness. That is the scariest posture of the Biden administration. Do I have that right?
Well, you certainly have it right, because a number of people have asked, why now? Why the large number of incursions at this moment? And I think there are two reasons. First of all, there is political infighting at the top in Beijing, and I think that lashing out at Taiwan is good politics for Xi Jinping, the Chinese ruler. But more important, the why now is because Beijing believes the Biden administration is not in a position to oppose it. We saw this in the propaganda immediately following the fall of Kabul, where China's two main propaganda narratives were, first of all, that because the Americans couldn't deal with the Taliban, they certainly can't counter China. And the second narrative was that when China invades Taiwan, Taiwan will fall in a day or two and U.S. will not come to help. So that's what the Chinese believe. I think that propaganda does reflect thinking in the Chinese capital. And this means this is an exceedingly dangerous moment.
The U.S. State Department released a statement following these military flights towards Taiwan from China, warning China against the provocative military activity, calling it destabilizing. But, you know, it seems to me that while the Department of State is putting out these statements, there's really not a lot going on there in terms of stopping China from provoking Taiwan and from continuing their aggressive behavior.
Yeah, the State Department statement on Sunday was they were, quote unquote, very concerned. Well, yeah, of course. And Antony Blinken's State Department has been great at issuing statements, but not so great in imposing costs on China for that. When Biden returned from Michigan on Tuesday, he said that he had spoken to Xi Jinping and that Xi Jinping had agreed to follow the Taiwan Agreement. Now, in official U.S. discourse, there's nothing called the Taiwan Agreement. We have the Shanghai Communique, the Six Assurances, the Taiwan Relations Act, and the One China Principle. But it's not clear what Biden was referring to. But even more important than that, we didn't hear Xi Jinping saying that he's abiding by any Taiwan agreement. And too often, and this is criticism of presidents of both parties, liberals and conservatives, that they often will speak for the Chinese leaders saying, oh, you know, they agreed to this or they're going to do that, when the Chinese leaders don't say anything. And so we sugarcoat Beijing's position. And I think Biden was doing that on Tuesday.
Yeah, it certainly seems like that's the case. We've had all this news on General Milley, Gordon, and to me, I think the piece that's missing in the analysis, which I hope I'm seeing this correctly, is it's shocking to me that a 4-star general in that position would call his Chinese counterpart, basically wave a white flag of diplomacy on all of the evil doing and abuses of humanitarian rights, of human rights, all around, whether it's the Uyghurs, whether it's what they've done in Hong Kong, whether it's what they seem to be saber rattling in terms of Taiwan. Isn't that problematic that a 4-star general wouldn't say, look, we know you're doing all these terrible things, and you might face the American military if you continue them?
Yeah, this really is shocking from a number of different perspectives. And it starts a constitutional crisis. But apart from that, the effect on the Chinese, I think, was made the world less safe. Now, I've heard various theories. Now, some people have said that General Li Chang, who is the person that Milley called, sort of took that and said, oh my gosh, the Americans are so arrogant that they think they can warn us before a war and still beat us. But I actually think that their reaction was also this, and that is that Milley's 2 calls in October and January confirmed in the minds of Chinese leaders and in the elite that the U.S. was in total disarray and that the U.S. was not able to counter China. So I think it emboldened the Chinese military and Xi Jinping. And so I think it just made the region less safe and certainly made the U.S. less safe. I'm sure that was not Milley's intention, but that was the effect. And we've got to remember that we think one way about the world. China thinks very differently about it. And therefore, I think it was Milley should understand better that whatever he said could have an unintended effect, which I think it did have in this particular case.
I'm reading Dr. Scott Gottlieb's book. He was former FDA commissioner, and it really brings to light China's unwillingness to share information, not only with the United States, but with the globe. And then, of course, pocketing the help of the World Health Organization because they supported China. Do people realize how dishonest the Chinese Communist government is, especially when it comes to their irresponsibility of how they handled COVID and how it quickly spread to become a global crisis?
Yeah, I don't think that we fully comprehend this because we're Americans and we believe that we're entitled to believe that everybody else is as the way we think. The one thing about China, it was not only did it fail to warn, which is an obligation of every member of the World Health Organization, but it also, as you say, was dishonest. Because we know that they knew that this was a highly contagious pathogen. They knew that for at least 5 weeks, probably a lot longer. But yet they told the world that SARS-CoV-2, the pathogen, was not transmissible from one human to the next. They knew it was really highly dangerous, highly transmissible. And at the same time, while they were locking down their own country, and yes, of course, lockdowns are controversial, but by locking down their own country, they were telling us that they felt lockdowns were effective in preventing disease. So while they were locking down their own country, they were allowing Chinese passengers to travel around the world, and they actually were pressuring countries not to impose travel restrictions and quarantines on those passengers from China. And they're the people who have spread the disease, which means that I believe that this was intentional. And I also believe that we should be calling those 4.8 million deaths outside China murders. 4.8 million murders.
Wow. Well, it's funny, they like to say, they like to basically accuse Donald Trump of that here in America, but they don't want to accuse the people that are really caused all this, our enemies in Beijing. It's an amazing thing to me.
Gordon Chang, thanks so much for joining us. I learn something new every time Gordon's on our show. We appreciate you. We appreciate Lydia for all the incredible work that you do in bringing awareness to this serious issue of our adversary of China.
And do you miss the slapdown? I think it's coming back.
It's coming back.
We'll be right back after this short break with a slapdown.
Do you think the tide can turn?
Look, it's going to be tough, but what you're starting to see is the rise of some conservative colleges like Hillsdale College and several others that students are going to because they need a place where they feel there could be this debate. The problem is it's not just stemming from the professors, but the students as well. It starts young. It starts really young. In fact, when you have Sesame Street calling Hispanic Heritage Month, okay, and I'm a Latina, calling Latinx Heritage Month?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like, the Spanish language is all based on el and la.
Yeah.
Like, you don't mess with it. And so I just feel that we're not quite there yet, because I do think that the indoctrination starts so early with these kids, and the Democrats and the left mob they have successfully tried to change our language.
Yeah.
Making sure we talk about pronouns.
Right.
Making sure that we talk about, we can't be he, she, because then we're really Latinx. And so it's like, what are we?
Yeah.
And that is where we from the right and the conservatives need to push back and literally save our language, save our country, and stop the wokeness in this country.
Mic drop on my foot. But but these are my slap-down glasses, by the way. But you did a great job on Gutfeld last night. That was fun.
I had the best time.
Yeah.
I have to tell you. I mean, Gutfeld truly is the king of comedy.
He's funny.
And I really enjoyed being on the show. I know you've been on the Gutfeld show as well. And we got to laugh a little, because things can be so dark, and you need to make sure that there's some laughter.
We got to give you
this madness that we're experiencing.
We got to give you some insights into the Gutfeld show, though. But he truly is that funny. He's funny going before the show, going into the show. Funny. And it's a little intimidating because Greg Gutfeld's really funny, but he has basically no limits. He can go anywhere he wants. He talks about a lot of things. And then my dirty brain goes with him, and then I can't really go there. So that I'm always kind of like, don't know what to do on the show. But you let it rip last night. That was good.
One of the funnier moments was when we talked about this side effect that's happening with COVID called the Restless anal syndrome, which I had no idea what that was. So we're just going to ask Fauci on the next show about what the restless anal syndrome is.
Couldn't really get that.
I couldn't get it out.
Couldn't really explain that.
Couldn't really explain it.
And then we should end the show with the greatest infographic ever, which is our Christmas homage to Dr. Fauci. Thank you for watching another episode of America Uncanceled on this great platform, CPAC Now, which also has the Bill Walton Show, which we bring you every Monday. You can watch all of these episodes whenever you want. You can binge watch with your favorite carb or whatever you like to do. And we're having a lot of fun doing it, and we're having a lot of success doing it. So there's a lot more that's going to be happening here at CPAC, and thanks for joining us.